so much for joining us for another edition of the Bloody Legends with Jai, that Aussie metal guy, and Jim Taylor, brought to you by crank.com. Make sure you're a bloody legend and hit that like and subscribe.
G'day, how you going? It is Jai, that Aussie metal guy, one half of the Bloody Legends, and my other half partner in crime is Jim Taylor. Tonight, wherever you are in the world, is a very special guest we have joining us, a true legend of Toronto's indie music scene, Mr. Ian Blurton, with a career spanning over 4 decades. Ian has been a pivotal figure in the evolution of Canadian rock and metal, definitely in the underground scene for sure, from his early days playing drums to leading Change of Heart, unreal punk band, and later forming other bands like Blurtonia. Ian's musical journey is nothing short of extraordinary. It is still going hard too. And we're here to dive into his latest project, Ian Blurton's Future Now, and the new album, Crimes of the Century. Ian, thank you for joining me.
Oh my God, thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure, mate. I am the king of the intro. Don't worry about that, mate. First off,
that was a good intro.
You're very, very welcome, man. I did kind of get the email for this and dove into your stuff for the Ian Blurton's and the Future Now, and doing my research, I kind of look back at some of the stuff you've done and kind of where you came from. Do you mind telling us about kind of where this journey all began for you way back when in Toronto then?
Oh boy. Well, punk rock and Kiss and Cheap Trick and stuff was, really important for me. And then, I started playing in the post-punk time and, I don't know, lots of, Black Flag, all sorts of things like, post-punk, English, Australian post-punk. And, I don't know, I just started playing at 16 in 1982 and have just been sort of grinding it out since. And I don't know.
So you started... Oh, it definitely is a lot to talk about. I know, you started out as a drummer. So tell me about that initial part of your career. You know what I mean? Starting out as a drummer and then kind of moving into kind of your first bands and kind of how that kind of evolved.
Oh, I mean, the first band, I was the drummer, and we tried to find a guitar player and a singer for like a long time, and we couldn't find one, and I started playing guitar, and then I just started singing because we couldn't find somebody really, and it was just, bunch of kids in the suburbs trying to put a band together, and, I don't know.
Yeah, so you did. So if I did read correctly, you did kind of play with the people from Cowboy Junkies at one point, and the Neon Rhyme in the earlier days. Yes. They were kind of starting as well. What was that like, kind of playing with all these bands then?
Oh, I mean, like the scene back then was just it was very small. Even though Toronto's like a bigger city, it was pretty small, and just the cross-pollination of like every type of music, even the different types of arts communities, theater and filmmakers and stuff. It was actually a very, very exciting time in Toronto, especially as a kid, getting your eyes, getting blown away by things that you could never imagine, and so it was a very exciting time. And we used to get, it doesn't happen quite as much anymore, but we would get so many bands that would start their American tours in Toronto. So like the first lots of British bands, first show would be Toronto, for example. So, and then of course, like all the SST stuff, like, Husker Du coming through town and Black Flag and, Meat Puppets and, Butthole Surfers and just that whole thing,
That's a lot of, I mean, you just mentioned it, like a veritable circus of awesome bands in that, and very, not only stylistically different, but also visually. You know what I mean? There's a lot going on with all these.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, cool. Butthole Surfers and then Husker Du, like, they're not even close, but that's what I liked, honestly, a lot about music. Not that it doesn't happen now, but just how wide the influence and like the fact that a metal person might be going to see the Meat Puppets because they have those couple of like heavy songs, or
Right.
vice versa, whatever.
I don't remember the singer. It might have been Seth Putnam. It was I'm sorry, Chris
Maybe Haynes.
Barnes. Give me hints. I was thinking but in death metal they were ABBA fans, and I can't remember if it was
Oh,
Chris
oh, okay.
Barnes or Seth Putnam. Oh, no, Gibby. I know who Gibby is. I was gonna say
Okay,
no. I'm
sorry.
with you with that.
I thought
Not
we
at
were still
all.
talking
Not
about
at
metal
all.
servers.
No, 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 no.
I hope Seth Putnam was an ABBA fan. That would seem to make
I think
sense.
it was him. It was someone like you would never imagine. That
Right.
was like, you know what I mean? Like, wait a minute, he had a song called "Crocodile Eating Vagina," and I was like, oh, I love Neil Diamond. Like, what? But that's the
Yeah.
beauty of, like you said, the different genres.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you've been a part of the scene since the early 1980s and still going strong there. How do you feel the scene has evolved and grown since those years, and what changes have you really noticed since then and now?
Mm.
Well, there's been definite waves, where there's a big dip, and then things start happening again, especially in Toronto. But I feel like in the last, I don't know, 4 years in Toronto, there's so many good young bands like Tumble who were taking on
Oh
tour,
wow.
are just a fantastic band. They put out a Pentagram cover. Bobby Liebing loved it, and they're about to get hopefully signed, and the record will be out in the early year. And they're a great band. There seems to be a lot of like a changing of the guard going on right now, which is
Mm.
sad in one way, but awesome in another. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's different too. You probably noticed the change with all the streaming platforms and the way that shit's evolved since kind of
Oh
back
yeah,
when
I
you
mean
first
that
started. It
is
was records, and now it's like everyone thinks, "Oh, I'm just streaming. I'm supporting the band," and things like that. It's a weird old fucking broken system, and the record labels and these big corporate cunts are still kind of pulling the strings and controlling shit anyway.
yeah. Yeah, it's weird. I feel like there maybe was always a little bit of that control there, anyways. Even when it was just vinyl or whatever, or
Yep.
CD, or it's just they've changed the way they're doing it, I guess.
Yeah, so you also were in Change of Heart, the punk band there as lead vocalist, guitarist, and songwriter there. Tell us about your kind of time with that band and some of the memorable moments and kind of challenges that you faced with that project.
Oh God, I mean, we were just to our detriment, even like DIY, and so it was a lot of long drives with no food and blah, all that kind of stuff. And we it took us a long time to actually get a record deal, and then we basically imploded as soon as we got the
Oh,
record deal. So, but I
damn.
mean, I wouldn't change a thing about it. It was, we were together for 15 years, and it was, we had a lot of really fun shows.
That's the thing.
There's a
You
band
remember the
actually called
good.
there's a band called the
No, no,
Tragically
no.
Hip from here, and they took us on tour a couple of times, and those were
No
like
kidding.
massive, like 20,000 people kind of shows. And so we would have never got there. So it was fun to be able to do that at
Going
least
on.
once.
Absolutely. I was gonna say, and that's very. Did you find you actually were born in Chicago, were you not?
Champaign, which is outside Chicago.
Okay. Did you notice, like, when did you move? Were you a youth when you moved to Canada?
Oh yeah, yeah, like a seven.
Oh, okay. So did you ever like go back and like in your travels, like did you ever take anything from say like a Chicago punk rock scene and then notice the differences with that and Canadian
Oh,
bands?
absolutely. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
like a lot of the Minneapolis bands were like really in your face, for example. Like, one of
Okay.
the craziest shows I've ever seen was this band Cows. And it
Wow.
was like mayhem in the first 50 seconds. I mean, just
Oh wow.
the threat of violence was just blah, right there. And but I mean, like I hung out in New Orleans a lot, and like even learning how to play the way people in New Orleans play a riff is, it's got
Yeah.
that southern laid back feel, even if it's really, really intense. And
Right.
So to be able to learn those kinds of things, like, go to a different city and like learn something is amazing like that,
Awesome.
if that's what you mean.
Yes, sir. No, 1000%.
So, your first solo album, Happy Endings, it kind of mark that little bit of a departure from some of your other stuff you'd worked on, and it kind of moved into a little bit more of the doom, the stoner, the elements as well. Kind of what inspired you to kind of shift in to start this musical style for you?
Well, come on. I was in a band called Come On at the time,
Yep.
and we took a year off, and I just actually Aaron Goldstein, who's the guitar player in Future Now, was in Happy Endings, and I had made a record. I was actually we were working with a mixer on a Come On record, and he didn't want me in the control room while he was mixing, so he set me up in the studio to make a record while he was mixing this record, and that's what the Happy Endings record was.
Wow.
And then the band came about, and then the band sort of just naturally fell apart. Everyone got, actually a couple of people in the band got really big gigs, so they were out for like 2 years. So we kind of just petered out.
And you did kind of touch on Come On there, and they did kind of have a significant run as well before kind of winding it up, I think around 2011 or something like that.
Sure, I don't know.
What are some of your highlights of your time with that band?
Oh God. Well, opening for MC5 or the MC3, the
Oh,
DDK show was probably the highlight of the band, and opening for Turbo Negro too in Toronto was a great show.
wow.
Yeah, I don't know, just lots of good shows actually. I think the highlight of that band was playing in a trio, which is kind of rare for me.
Oh, wow. Is that a different? I guess that yeah, sure, it'd be a different dynamic where you have to cover a little more ground.
Oh yeah, and you have to
Okay.
simplify everything, and
Right.
yeah, just yeah, I can't do it all.
So jumping into the Ian Blurton's project and the Future Now, tell me a
Yeah.
little bit about how this first began for you.
Um, I just I started making a solo record, and I wanted to do it with well, in a power trio format actually, and so I chose like a bunch of rhythm sections from town, and
Oh, wow.
they sort of each got 3 songs, and we just sort of worked out the record like that. I made it mostly by myself, but Glenn Milcham, who's the drummer in Future Now, played on that, and Anna, who's the bass player, played on that first record as well. So they were like
Wow.
naturals for the live band, and then Aaron, who had been in Happy Endings, came on because I knew that we could harmonize together, and he's a really good lead player, and et cetera, et cetera.
Wow. Will you
Yes,
be hitting the US on tour as well, or
I've got that.
um
I've got
I
that
haven't
too as
played
well.
the US.
I'll let you go. I'm sorry.
No,
I
no.
did it again. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, we got that tour coming up as well that just Jim touched on. Tell us about that.
Sorry. I mean,
That's all right. We're just doing we're doing well, they call it the 401 run. It's there's a highway that goes by every city that we're playing. So we're going to Montreal, which is a wonderful city in Quebec. It's another province. It's like French, and we'll play from there and then until 8 hours south, and just sort of everywhere in between.
That's
very
actually
cool.
that's
Very
starting
cool.
this weekend, isn't it? On
Yeah,
the
we start
9th.
Friday in a place called London, Ontario, not London, England, unfortunately.
Yeah. Home of Eric Lindros.
Oh my God.
Oh,
Is that
I'm a
where
big
he's from?
90s hockey fan. Yeah.
Oh, you are? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I had I remember I used to be really good at naming the cities that a lot of those players were from. It's sad. I'm sorry.
No, actually, one of the cool things, one of the cool things about touring in Canada is like you'll get to the town sign, and it'll say what hockey
Oh,
player is from that town, or
no
like there'll be a
kidding.
couple, and you'll be going through these
Oh, I
like
love it.
tiny little towns in like on the prairies, and they'll have these like signs. Like it's pretty funny, amazing.
That's pretty
And
awesome.
yeah.
I have my super nerdy Peterborough lift locks button when I was on. I went, yeah.
Wow.
Okay, I saw you perk
Wow.
up at that.
Yeah.
That's cool though. But with the traveling, do you find your on downtime? Do you find yourself writing? I know that's a cliche question, but there's a lot of
Like
people
on
that
the
are like,
road.
no, we're gonna travel, and I'm worried about the next show. Do you ever get like pull out the guitar and just start riffing like in
I think
between?
maybe in sound check, but not honestly, not
Nothing
really.
on the bus.
No, no, because
That
like we don't go to these towns a lot, so it's
right.
opportunities to see friends and
That's cool.
eat in our favorite restaurants, that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that
The
second.
bagels in Montreal are like incredible, so it's like
You're.
that's a gift, for example.
I had them in Ottawa. I know what you mean, though.
Yes,
Yes, sir. They're good. It's something y'all's water. I don't know what it is, but
it is. It's something I don't know, magic.
That,
yeah,
that Second Skin album was an absolute ripper of a debut album drop, man. Really, really
yes,
great listen. What was it like kind of making that album and kind of starting this project coming out of COVID? Because around 2022, I think the Second Skin
yes.
album dropped. So,
Right.
I think
We
I did have
actually
my notes there.
recorded it in like fall of 2019, just
yep.
before COVID hit.
Yep.
And we were really lucky. There's a museum in a city called Calgary, called the National
Yep.
Music Center, and they have like all these, like they have the board that the early Merciful Fate records were made on. They have the truck. It's called the Rolling Stones Mobile, and it's like, Machine
Oh,
Head
neat.
by Deep Purple was recorded on it, and it's like Led Zeppelin 3 and 4 were recorded on it. And they
Oh boy.
bought the truck and they installed it in the museum, and they let us come in and record with the truck, and we had been the first like rock band to record with that truck, and who knows how long.
Oh,
So that was just like, unbelievable
that's a
experience.
huge honor. That's very
Oh my
cool.
God, yeah.
Like to be part of that.
Yeah. And it's like part of the thing. They have a warehouse full of like gear, and so you can ask for any. I think it was 10 things from the warehouse. And so
Right.
one of the things we got was Mellotron, and that's why there's a lot of Mellotron on that record, is because
Oh,
just
that's cool.
if we're gonna have an actual Mellotron sitting in front of somebody the whole recording process, so it's like you might as well use it as much as possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. So jumping into the latest album, Crimes of the City, another great release from you. I love doom stoner metal. I started listening a lot.
Same.
Speaking off through COVID, actually loads of it. So I really enjoyed that Second Skin and also this latest release from you as well. Can you tell me a little bit about some of the inspiration behind this album?
Mm.
Well, I mean, one thing we definitely wanted to do was after, Second Skin is, got a lot of elements and, breakdowns and little bits, and a couple of the songs are very, very long. And I think we wanted to, not that our record sounds like Back in Black, but we wanted to sort of do like, 10 bangers, no breakdowns, no psych parts, no acoustic guitar, no keyboards, blah, 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 and, so we demoed, I think, 18 songs, and then whittled it down to 10 and just worked it out from that, and like Glenn and I worked pretty hard on the drum sound, and just sort of we wanted to have like a Danzig 1 kind of vibe to the drums, because Chuck Biscuits is, he's Canadian and he's one of the greatest drummers of all time. So that's sort of where we started from, and it just went from
Oh,
there.
man, absolutely. That whole record, I remember when I bought that. Yeah, you're right. And he had a very distinctive tonality. Like you hear
Oh,
songs like
just fat
She
and just
Rides. It's fat, right?
yeah.
I want to call that a blues album. That's almost
Oh
not
yeah,
punk. It's
like
like a
heaviest
heavy
blues
blues
ever.
album,
Yeah.
right? That's very cool. Is that what with this? I noticed it was very dense. What you have. What was that? What are you using as far as equipment and instruments and all that? Besides the
Oh
Mellotron.
man, like a lot of not to be an whatever, a lot of vintage microphones and preamps, and like some of the
Wow.
preamps are from the 40s and some of the mics are from the 40s, and just we tried to record everything with like no ambience at all, and just try and get it as
Oh,
direct and as fat as possible. And like for example, like the guitar is like I used one guitar on the whole record, two 5 foot cables and one pedal that my friend built for me and into a Marshall, and that's it. Like just like try and keep it as simple as possible. And actually Aaron did the same thing as well.
That's such a cool tone too.
Yeah, so how did you approach the songwriting then, taking that into account as well and arranging for this project compared to the first album?
Well, if there was anything like jammy, it was like, get rid of that kind of, like let's keep all the songs to short length. And so I think that was like the most important thing. And then having, we have a guest, Gregory McDonald, who sang backups. He's in a local band called Sloan, who are like a power pop band, and he's just an incredible singer. And we sort of wanted like a Def Leppard, Sweet Queen backup vocal kind of thing, and he really helped us with that. It was amazing.
With the creative
So I
process.
think the choruses was really the focus. What's that?
Oh no, you go. That you're about to get on what I'm talking about anyway.
No, just the choruses were, it was like making sure the choruses were, as good as we could possibly make them. Also, that was a real focus.
Yeah. So, how do you manage your roles there? Because you're also a producer, which I got to mention that as well. So, how do you manage that, the wearing the musician, the producer, and the songwriter hat? You know what I mean? At different times.
I think you sort of just have to let it go. Like, like if I'm in the producer chair for the band, it's like I'm not the songwriter. I'm like want to look at it as, you know, uh, see what all our options are, as opposed to, being delicate about like, oh, this is my song. And, it's like, it means so much to the world and all that kind of stuff, and it's like, I think, and having Glenn too, like he's a big sounding board, and everyone comes up with their own ideas. Like I'm not writing parts for people. There might be like an idea that they can expand on, but I'm not writing people's parts. So it's like really, it's about everyone coming together and doing their thing.
That's brilliant. Oh,
Were there
I'm
any?
just sorry.
Were
I
there
like
any?
being in a
That just
band. I
hit
don't
me.
know.
Were there any specific themes you were kind of going at with this kind of album as well?
Hmm.
Any?
Um, God, I don't know. It's hard to say. Like, we're actually just learning the songs, so it's like I don't, it. Sometimes it takes a while to even like for the song to explain to you what it's about. I mean, the basic thing is like, there's a lot of, I live in a fairly poor neighborhood, and there's just a lot of people being pushed down by the government, and it's sort of about the love and the work that's required to help everyone rise, like not rise against something, but just,
Right.
rise and be able to live and, have a good life.
The album art. I've got to talk about the album art, man. That was
Yeah.
really cool. I'm going to quickly share it. So if we go a little bit funny, it's only because I'm sharing the album art. There we go. It should come up for the listeners. That's what you're looking
Oh,
for when
yeah.
you're
Oh,
going
yeah.
to buy it,
Yeah.
people.
Yep. It's so cool. It looks like retro futurism.
Yeah,
Right.
I dig it.
it's unreal. And they you got the tour posters pretty well like that as well, which is Crimes in Your City tour, which looks unreal. Tell
Right.
us a little bit about who done your
Yeah.
album art, the kind of the
Um,
concept. You go.
Actually, there's a local repertoire theater here called like just up the street called The Review, and a really old friend does the posters, and they show old '70s movies and stuff, and he does all the posters for them, and he just kept posting posters, and I was like, this guy is so good. Like I just like what could he possibly come up with? And so we
Yeah.
had our friend Kelly. She took the photograph of the woman holding the sword, and then
Neat.
Johnny just went to town on the cover, and I don't know. I really love the way it turned out.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it came out really well.
Lots
I love
of
the look
blood.
of it. Definitely, we're all
Yeah.
showing our age now with the real retro look there. It looks absolutely
I love
unreal,
it.
man. Yeah,
Absolutely.
it does kind of have that feel of the old 70s horror movies, almost like
Yeah.
the big
Mhm.
flies you'd see out the front of the cinemas. Looking back on your diverse career, you know, from some of the stuff you've done from the early days till now, what are some of the lessons you feel you've learned as a musician and as an artist?
Oh boy. Well, I mean, going back to, well, I think the most important thing about being in a band is always try and play with people who are better than you.
Mhm.
And if they're better than you, that means they probably have really good ideas. So let them do what they think they want to do, because a lot of times the ideas are, can be amazing. I actually just saw, Quincy Jones just died, and I
Oh,
just saw
yeah.
the thing, and he was talking to the bass player, and they would like Quincy he wouldn't even write anything out. He'd just like come in and he'd be go like, give me this, give me that, and then the band would just start
Mhm.
playing and it would happen. And I think that's what happens when you have good musicians and they listen to each other and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think on being in a band, that's probably one of the biggest things I learned.
Yeah, that's a great lesson. Favorite track off the album and why? And I know it changes and it's hard
Yeah.
as a songwriter. Week to week.
Cast Away the Stones probably right now, because I've been playing it so much, because it's so, I almost swore hard. Oh God, what a nightmare.
I'm an Aussie, mate. I do good just not to swear most of the time.
He taught me over the course of the past year, so I'm new to it, but learning every day from him.
Best place that people can head along and support Ian Blurton's future now.
Bandcamp.
Yeah,
Ian Blurton,
Bandcamp.
Bandcamp.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, I love platforms like Bandcamp. Hey, it's you get over there, stream the heck out of it. But if you really want to support, get over to Bandcamp, buy the albums, buy the merch off the bands, and get along to the shows. Got a
Yeah,
show.
and there's actually a new one called Amp Wall that we'll probably hopefully put the record up on at some point soon. But it's a guy from Woe, and it's supposed to be great.
Oh.
And it's nice to have somebody that's trying to take that to the next level. Because if you could, I think the idea is to like have everything in one spot, as opposed to merch being one place and your shows somewhere else and all that kind of thing.
Exactly. Awesome. Do you have any last words, shout outs, thank yous, or anything else you'd like to add in there, my friend?
Oh God, I don't know. Thanks for having me, and
Sir, thank you for being on with us.
Absolute bloody pleasure. Everybody go out, grab Ian Blurton's Future Now. The latest album is Crimes of the City. Second Skin is an absolute ripper. Get over to Bandcamp, buy it both out. Go catch them on tour over in Canada. This has been an absolute pleasure. Cheers, mate.
yeah.
Oi, you're tuned in to Jolly That Aussie Metal Guy, so make sure to hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss any of his sick content. And remember, stay brutal, you legend.